type of answer. And they don't, I think they just don't know how to respond, like you said, because they're going through their head going, how do I engage that in a way that is genuine or doesn't reveal something about myself? Hey, Jonathan, question I've been thinking about for a little while, and I'd love for you to tease this out for me a little bit. Why do you think mental health diagnoses are now in vogue when it comes to like Gen Z and Gen Alpha? What I mean by that is kind of the trend on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat right now is kind of sharing what our diagnosis is, and then kind of, our life struggle or story with that, and it's a bunch of middle school, high school students that are doing that. What are your thoughts on that?
We had mentioned this in an earlier episode. I'll have to go back and find it. And then if you're watching on YouTube, you can click up here and see it, or be down in the show notes. I think the reason it's so popular is for two things. For two reasons. One, if you zoom out and look at like culture as a whole or community as a whole, and start with your family, go out to your friends, go out to your local context, and zoom out from there, from micro to macro. There's three things that are very true in any of those spaces, and it's the basic tenet of any culture anywhere in the known world. It's to be seen, heard, and known. So there's things that drive all of that, right? You become accredited in something. You work to receive notoriety. You build a portfolio, so to speak, that gives you credibility, so that you can be people will notice you. You'll have more of a platform. You'll have more influence. You'll be listened to. People will want to listen when you speak. Gives you a sense of authority, like you're important, and then people will know you as the blank person. And those exist in different levels, from like with yourself out to your friends, your family, and all the way out further than there. When it comes to today's culture, with everything going on in the world, and as fast as things happen, people are striving to have something, a label or identity or something attached to them. So when it comes to mental health and being in the forefront, and people are talking about it more, and the instant access to information and every shit assessment you can take to give you some sort of diagnosis on the fly that you can get for free. Fun fact, if you're listening to this and you're younger, if you go and you see, learn whether you're autistic, or whether you have ADHD, or whether you have depression, or whether you have anxiety, in 2 minutes with this quick free assessment, it is not going to be an accurate diagnosis. It is a tool. It is a tool for information to give you a next step. It is not something that you should look for to apply to self-diagnose yourself. Do not do it. And if they ask you for money to take SID test and then get a diagnosis in 5 minutes, they're a grifter, they're a fake guru, and they're trying to steal your money, and you should report them, and you should go do something else.
I'll say this over and over again. What we're doing in this podcast is not counseling. It shouldn't be confused as counseling. And there are a lot of people that are out there that are doing things that they don't create a disclaimer that says this is not counseling. The only people, and I'll say this again, the only people that you should receive a diagnosis from is your primary care physician, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a counselor.
That's why Mark and I have these conversations together. He is the licensed clinical expert. At the end of the day, I am not. I am well versed, but it's come from self-work and mistakes. And so I am here to have my information checked, and we have conversations, designed to inform you, not diagnose you. So assessments are great.
Now, I mean, but real quick, on a side note, people are telling you that, you maybe would be a really good counselor.
I know, but I don't want to. I do have a genuine fear of losing the losing the sort of the ground floor level, like
Sure.
coach like approach that I bring to the
Sure.
table.
And you're really good at that.
And so one of the big questions I'm asking is, how could I do that, but not in a clinical environment? Like, how could I bring that into some sort of coaching or whatnot, or just continue to infuse it in my everyday life with people? So, but I do hear that all the time.
Which is a compliment, by the way.
Yeah, to answer your question, one, I think assessments are great. We're going to create one, but they should never be, unless they come from like a very specific source that involves work before, during, and after. It's nothing more than an informative tool. Same with personality type tests and all of that. There's some really good ones, but we should not use them as the end all be all.
Speak to that for a minute. Like, when you mean an informative tool, what do you mean?
Just to show you whether you could have, whether there is something that you should be aware of that should drive you to ask more questions. Meaning, if I were to go online and take a very quick test of like, do you have like high functioning autism, right? Everyone's doing that. And that's the one where a lot of people are going after today, because you search TikTok and everyone's like, oh, I'm like, might be on the spectrum, blah, 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 which in all actuality is disrespectful to people that have been like formally diagnosed. Like, it's very disrespectful and diminishing to those folks.
Yeah.
However, if you do take one and it comes back with a result, you should look at it as though, okay, this does not determine whether I have, do not have, or the potentially could have. At best, it says, based on these results, this is something that you should pay attention to, or go to a licensed clinician and say, hey, I did this. What do you have to say?
And I will say, a licensed counselor technically cannot diagnose autism spectrum disorder.
They're going to refer you to someone else.
And the autism spectrum diagnosis is typically a 3 to 6 hour assessment done by somebody that's been certified in that.
It's similar to when my first counselor said, I want you to go have an evaluation. And it was an in-depth, like basically full spectrum, head to toe, front to back, psychological evaluation that took 6 hours. And then I had 2 sessions with that person who administered the test. Well, that person didn't. She had 2 staff members that worked for her. Then she met with me for 2 sessions, and then all of that information went back to my counselor to know, like, all right, this is where we're going.
Uh-huh.
So even then, there were some actual diagnosis of anxiety, depression, and some other stuff. But even then, that still created an informative baseline to allow counseling to know where to practically let the rubber meet the road.
Yep.
So to answer your question, I think the reason it's in vogue or it's so popular right now is because so much of this generation deals with so much that they're looking for anything and everything to have some sort of identity or label attached to them, because it lets them feel like, now I'm a part of a community that will get me.
Or it justifies the way I'm feeling, or...
And actually, it lets you skip the process. So another thing that I've seen with a lot of the younger generation now is they see success and they want success without the work to get to it. So it's like, I want to skip the rock across, like I want to get this rock across the river. I don't want to skip it. I want to find some way to launch it across the river or teleport it there without having to put forth the effort to get it across the water. I'm not picking on the younger generation. It's just what has become a result. And so it's like, we want the ends, but we don't want the means to get there. I want to be healthy, but I don't want to put in the work to get healthy.
Yeah, it's this. I think what it is they don't know life without social media and without screens. And again, that's not a bad thing per se. However, you see the 0.01% of individuals that are on social media that are major influencers, like Mr. Beast and Dude Perfect and others. Well, you don't understand the trajectory that took to get them to where they're at, and the work that, it just didn't happen overnight.
I mean, I tell my clients, well, I have a book that's coming. It's finally going to be birthed into the world.
I'm excited. It's about time for that to come out.
I had to make the disciplined choice of like letting it wait with so much stuff going on this year. But what I tell people, and what the macro premise of my book is that I push against the viral culture. Like, when I'm working with clients in the business and marketing space to build a brand, it's like, look, What we're going to do is not to make you go viral overnight, because you're going to get to the tip of that iceberg real fast and you're going to come off the other side of it twice as fast.
Mhm.
So a lot of what we're going to do is going to start below the surface of the water, and we're going to build the foundation, and then we're going to break through the water, and then you're going to get to where you can start to see that success, the sustainable trajectory.
And you're doing that with us and Mental Health Made Simple, and, it's just yeah, it's a good foundation. And I think that's the thing is I mean, I'm trying to really lean into the like you said, the seen, valid, love, known, kind of what we call interpersonal.
And those are really good, but we want them instantly.
Yes.
We want to do whatever we can do to get from not being seen, not being heard, not being known as fast as we can, and we miss things along the way.
Okay, so let's practicalize this for a second. There's something that's buzzing right now that will either it's in vogue or it shuts a room off. Right? It's almost like it's either it's like it's firewalled on either side.
You can walk into a room and it shifts. You can have conversations with friends and family, and suddenly it's like you can hear the proverbial tires screeching to a halt. Awkward silence, like responses that people have no idea what to do with it. And if you want to have a fun experience or a fun experiment, just go into a room and just mention the word anxiety.
And it's like, how you walk, like the old-timey movies when the guy walks through the door and the music kind of goes "Rrr," and stops. And the reason I say it's a firewall on either side is because I hear a lot of people use the word anxiety, and it's actually nerves or worry or stress. It's actually not anxiety. But that word is, I think, overused, and it goes back to what you talked about with the whole autism piece. It can be disingenuous to the actual process.
Yeah, and there's so many different types of it. If you want to learn about the different types of anxiety, Steve Cuss is a great leader, and he wrote a book a few years ago called Managing Leadership Anxiety, and it teaches you it informs you how to view anxiety both with yourself and those around you, and the different types. He dives into like the Geniogram and like takes it through like things that are common in your family that come through. It's really good. I would recommend people read it. I will drop the link in the show notes. But like, why does anxiety make people feel comfortable? Like, why does it make people feel so uncomfortable? Like they just are like almost like they need to fix it and they can't. And then they're like, I need to now somehow treat you differently, but I don't know what to do because I can't solve this. And I don't know what to do. And two, I don't want to really learn about it.
Well, I think it goes back to what you said about, and I think what is highlighted in the Gen Z, Gen Alpha is prevalent in all generations. I want it and I want it now,
Yeah. I mean, but with the anxiety stuff, I can walk into, I love my grandmother to death. Like even like if you go to the generation behind you, like to my parents and grandparents, mention the word anxiety or depression and you get one or two responses like, well, why don't you go for a walk to calm down because you're stressed out? Well, stress and anxiety aren't the same. Or if you say, oh, I'm dealing with depression right now, well, why don't you just laugh a little, do something fun?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the two where they're normally equated to. What I think, and I want you to unpack this, is I think when you mention that you have anxiety to someone that doesn't know, and I think this episode is speaking to, I want to speak to that person that doesn't know how to respond when someone says I'm dealing with anxiety, is it threatens the illusion of control.
Oh, 100%. I think there are things within it that we can control, or not control. There's things that we can do to help engage the healing parts of anxiety. But I think a lot of it is out of our control in the sense of the neurophysiological components of it. And I think it's a catch. It's a both and piece that we have to talk about.
Would you say it's a lack of control because when someone says that to you and they don't know because they don't know how to respond back to it, like I don't know how to respond. I don't know what you want from me, and I don't know what you need.
Yeah, I think in relationship, we can sit with the person and go, okay, like, tell me what, there's things we can do to help the individual, right? One of my favorite things to do is just kind of that curiosity. So here's a phrase I love all the time with if you're the person that is in the room and somebody says they have anxiety and you're kind of like caught unawares, or you're just kind of got a brain block and not what to do, and it's, you don't want to be awkward, you want to be kind. um well, I would just say, tell me what that looks like for you. Help me understand what your anxiety looks like. Or I would always say, if your anxiety could have words, what would it say? Is a curious kind of way, if you got the time to sit with them, to really engage in understanding it better.
Do you think another reason it like sucks air out of the room is because it potentially exposes a vulnerability that either they weren't expecting you to share, or that they themselves are afraid because they may not have faced it yet? Like, oh, you're being vulnerable, and now I don't know how to be vulnerable, so now I don't know what to do.
Maybe, yes. I think that's always a big one. I also think that some people think that anxiety can be contagious, and so they're worried about that, or that they're worried that it's going to uncover something that they've been trying to hide so well for a long time, and it's almost telling a truth about them that makes it hard, which is what you just said about the vulnerability. And I don't. This is not the time to get into this. Anxiety actually can be contagious in family systems, if but that's a whole nother conversation for a different time. It's not contagious when it comes to friends, or people in your life that you don't live with.
Very true. My next one was it mirrors something that the other person or individuals in the room are potentially avoiding.
Yeah, 100%. Right? When you become vulnerable with me, if I've not done the work, you're putting a mirror up and you're revealing something about me that I'm trying to keep contained or hidden, or yeah. So yeah, that produces fear, that produces uncertainty, that produces concern.
Right, because how many times have you sat with someone or you've been around someone and they'll start explaining something like, "Oh, I'm like, man, I'm like, there's a lot going on and I'm not really sure what to do. Like, I'm not really, I've got some big decisions to make and I'm not really sure which one to take, and it's making me, it's making me feel a little bit overwhelmed or what's going on." Then suddenly you start to like play that back in your head and you're like, "Oh no, am I dealing with the same thing?"
Mhm.
You're
Well,
like, "Oh no, wait a minute."
yeah. Well, I mean, here's a good example, right? I mean, ever since I got injured, um, I go to church and people come up to me, ask me how I'm doing. I'm not gonna say fine, right? And I'm
Mhm.
not meaning to make the other person feel uncomfortable, but I'm not gonna play that game. No, I'm not fine. Like, you asked me today how I'm doing, like, I'm dealing with some chronic pain today. It's not fun. I didn't expect you to say anything else, but I'm gonna be honest. And you and I know each other well enough that, we're good with that. But, it's been amazing when I tell people at church how I'm doing, they're sitting there going, oh, okay. This is not the blessed, better than I deserved, good, fine, I'm okay, I'm learning good lessons from God type of answer. And they don't, I think they just don't know how to respond, like you said, because they're going through their head going, how do I engage that in a way that is genuine or doesn't reveal something about myself?
Well, I think there's a very a much bigger existential problem in the world around us, where people don't actually want the real answers or the real stuff.
Mhm.
And I would say I'm guilty of this too. I don't always want to hear like the heavy stuff that someone's talking about. I always don't want to give that stuff, but I also don't want it to be expected that when, that I'm only ever going to show up and give the happy, kumbaya, life is, oh, I'm sorry, life is great, but it's totally, like the kid gloves approach. I think as a people as a whole, there is a part of us that has grown accustomed to only wanting like the Mickey Mouse Playhouse version of real life with life itself and all the relationships that come with it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like don't want to we don't want to be told, "Hey, you know what? That was like BS that you did that. and I'm going to call you on it. Oh, by the way, I'm calling you on it because I care. Just like we don't want someone to be like, man, I'm really struggling right now. We honestly do not want to go into a room and say, man, I'm going to come authentically and with great intention, and I'm going to ask 5 people how they're doing today. And what I really want is for all of them to give me some long, drawn out, hard, heavy answer of how miserable things are so that I can figure out what to do with it. Nobody wants to do that.
But let me ask this question in response to that. I think the genuineness of asking how people are doing and wanting that response, but why do we feel pressure to have to respond, right? Because I think where is that a Western mindset that I have to have some kind of like good answer to this person that's telling me that they're miserable?
All right, I'm going deep on this one.
Okay, let's do it.
One, because it immediately creates anxiety. So if you're listening or watching this and you say you don't have anxiety or what it is, when someone asks you something today, tomorrow, when you're out in public, just stand there quietly and not say anything and listen to how your whole body checks up.
Okay.
For 10 seconds, feel how your whole body checks up and then respond. Like pay attention to what thoughts you're having and how quickly they respond and you're processing like how the response to what they asked you, where you feel it. You're experiencing anxiety because you feel like you have to give them an answer and you really don't. I think it comes into, it's definitely a Western thing because we don't like to owe anybody anything. We think if someone does something for us, we have to immediately do something of the same level or something a level above what they've done for us. So if you ask me something, then I have to share something back with you that matches that level of whatever that investment was or exceeds it.
Yeah, and that's wow. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. We feel like we have a debt to be paid whenever something asks us from us. You can call it what it is. It's a Western thing.
Let's make this practical for a minute from like a Christmas standpoint. If I were to send you a gift in the mail, your initial response would be, "Oh crap." Maybe not you because we know each other well enough, but like, "Oh crap. I have to go get something for Mark now." If not, he's gonna think I'm something this or this, that, or the other thing.
Or if someone's inviting me to their house, I have to bring something with me.
Or I gotta invite them to my house later. Versus like, and I've learned this in other cultures, the Hispanic culture when I was in Africa, even some of the European cultures. No, the greatest thing I could do is to accept it and to be grateful for it and to enjoy it. And there's no expectation of something in return, ever.
Yeah. And so if someone says I'm dealing with anxiety right now, you don't know what anxiety is, you don't put the pressure on yourself to give some
bogus
crazy response. Sometimes a simple like, man, I'm really sorry. Can you tell me more about that?
Or help me understand what that means to you, or what does that look like? How does it show up?
We're a very debt-driven society, and I think that's where it comes from. I think whether it's, philosophically, spiritually, financially, whatever it is, if we feel like there's a debt to be paid, we have to do something to check a box to eliminate it, to get back to a net zero.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I often don't challenge when I sit with somebody, I don't challenge the notion of whether it's anxiety or not. That's how they're experiencing it in that moment. On these podcasts, we'll talk about language and be important that if it's not anxiety, don't call it anxiety, call it what it is. But for many people, that's the only adjective that they have to explain what's going on in their life right now. And so I'm not going to take that away from them.
So that's a good next step. So I want to push into simplifying what is anxiety. Not there's a bunch of different types and all that, but what is anxiety? I've got the simple, like, it's not weakness, it's not overthinking. That's part of it. In a lot of ways, you could say it's your nervous system doing its job just way too well.
Sure, yeah.
But it's protective, misfiring. But clinically and very simply, like, what is anxiety for the person? It's like, I hear this all the time. My family talking about it. I'm gonna go spend, it's the new year and like, what's going on? How can I better understand what it is when I inevitably hear it or see it talked about in 2026?
I think what I want us to understand is that there's not a simple answer to that. And I think part of it is that it is a state of being, right? And I think this is where we have to differentiate between feeling and being. We can have feelings, anxious feelings that come and go. But true anxiety is a state of being, and it's complex in that it could be linked to our nervous system, as you alluded to. It could be linked to um, a negative, and we talked about this in our CBT episodes. It could be linked to a negative thought patterns that will actually jumpstart our cortisol and adrenal gland responses. So cortisol is our stress hormone. Adrenal glands or adrenaline is our kind of the component to fight, flight, or freeze, which is linked to our nervous system. So those pieces are our thoughts and our central nervous system are connected. But one of the things that we don't pay attention to a lot is our gut, our stomach, and a lot of the um, implications for depression and anxiety actually can begin in our gut. So if we have an unhealthy gut, inflammation, we're eating poorly. Maybe we've got an autoimmune disease or something like that. It's going to really impact the physiological expression of what we call anxiety. And so it's so when I'm sitting with a patient, I'm going, okay, I want to get to know every aspect of how you experience it. Where you experience I ask the question, where do you experience it in your body? Like you said, pay attention to the physiological feelings.
Well, what I say is, I mean, and we can't expect people to go in, like if someone mentions that word and they're like, oh, to go into like a big deep diagnostic or like understanding what it is. So the way I've looked at a very baseline one approach to anxiety, and I'm going to give the anxiety for dummies definition, is that there is something going on when someone says it to you. They're dealing with something that is off in the distance. That's like the unknown that is either being avoided or an answer that they're trying to seek certainty for, and it's not there. And there's outcomes that are out of control. There's things that are going on that are off in the distance that you can't get to. And instead of trying to find clarity in the moment, you're looking for certainty far off in the distance. And it's pulling you into the unknown, which is going to put you in this heightened sense of being. And the walk back is like, okay, what's happening like right now? And instead of I'm wanting certainty for something when I really need clarity in the moment. And so that when someone says that to me, it's like, okay, I may have not ever experienced it. I may have not ever dealt with it, which I do, but it's you can say, okay, this person's dealing with something off in the distance and it's causing them to look for an answer they can't get to right now. There's a solution that they can't get to and they're grasping to try and get to it. They're looking for a definitive outcome and that's not there. Let's get you back into the moment right now.
Well, and that's where, yeah, I love that. I think it's very practical. I mean, the clinical piece is, like you said, it's excessive fear and worry, and difficulty
Of usually something in the unknown.
unknown and difficulty controlling it, which then links to the associated physical cognitive symptoms, which create fatigue, sleeplessness, irritability, muscle tension, sleep problems. But here's where it becomes anxiety. It has to be lasting longer than 6 months.
Right. And so I think that's one of the reasons we misunderstand it. I think it's the big one. Like confusing anxiety with character flaws. If you have people in your life that are just always pedal to the metal, foot to the floor,
Mm-hmm.
like hard charging, and they're just also very reactive. They're very just like they're very reactive, unreliable, but they're moving fast, they're intense and like everything they do, but they're just like late to everything, like all of those things. Like if you're living in a self-induced state of heightened stress because you're intentionally making choices that are making you respond hard charging and things of that nature, you may feel like you have anxiety, but what you're doing is your own lack of discipline is showing up, and it's not actually anxiety.
Right. And that's why we need people to help tease these things out.
I've heard this one. Just push through it, grin and bear it. Grit, tenacity, resilience. You'll get there. And that's to your point of like, it's how long has this been dealing with? Have you been dealing with for like 6 months, or is this just happening? No, it's the last couple of days I've been feeling this. Okay, that's not always like helpful.
Well, like for example, I've dealt with anxiety since I was in middle school. And probably for the last 10 years, I have maybe 1 or 2 days a month when it's really in my face and prevalent. But the rest of the time, I've been able to reflectively engage in what I've learned over the last 20, 30 years to implement it. When something like what I've been dealing with for the last 5 weeks with my injury happens, it's like right here all the time. And I'm constantly dealing with, I've got the tools, I've got the skills, I've done these things, I know this, right? But it's and for me, not that I have pushed my identity in my anxiety, I just know that that is because of one thing or another, because of my traumas, because of the thing, because of life, all this thing. That's my reflex when things get hard. Not that it's something that I am going to live by or die by. Oh, look at me, I've got anxiety.
Similarly, I think, and I would say a lot of people feel it this way. Like I have it, pops up, and I've been feeling it more heavily recently. I've got a couple of like larger transitions coming that are out of my control. Like there's like I would hope for it to be here sooner, but it can't. I can't make it get here any faster. And so like I'll lie in bed at night and it'll like pop in and I'll think about it and I'll immediately feel it come on. And it's like, all right, like, think through it, let it go, and choose not to stay there. But it's a control thing. Like it's out in the unknown. I know this thing is going to come. It's just, and it's nothing bad. It's a good thing that's coming, but it's like, I want it to be here faster. And because I can't control it getting here quicker, it's like, and it'll put me into a different thought process and just have to snap out of it. And then know that it's not going to stay there. Like, okay, just go ahead and walk that back. But I want to get into a couple of the responses to the problem. There's the social response, which I think is largely the wrong way. People jump to fixing instead of listening. That goes back to what we said earlier about if you ask me a question, I feel like I have to give you an answer that is of equal or greater response than what you asked. And so if you say something and I hint that, and I pick up that there's something wrong, like I feel like I need to fix it instead of just listening. And that's what you see most of the time, even in a lot of the hacks and crap you see from fake gurus on social media. They don't tell you listening tools. Most of them, they give you they create problems that aren't actually real. Then they create hacks or solutions to those problems that aren't real in an attempt to convince you that you can fix something that is not something you can just snap your finger and fix. So across the board.
But real quick, why the reason they do that is they told you the way it was supposed to be actually going. They wouldn't sell anything.
Right. It's for likes, clicks, and views in whatever $17 course they're selling.
Exactly.
So and again, I have no problems with likes, clicks, and views and creating and offering a $17 course if it's done from the place of like, what are the motives behind it?
Yeah, agreed.
The other one, like minimizing instead of validating, a lot of that one I think is unintentional, is done with good intentions because we don't know how to respond. And I think people often don't want to validate something because they feel like they're validating, like, oh, I'm just placating you. If I was like, oh, that's okay. Like, and that's a big one. Like, I'm not going to tell you, oh, that's okay. If you're telling me, yeah, I'm hurting, like, oh, that's fine. Like, that's kind of a crappy thing to say. It's just thinking for a minute and then just validating that, like, hey, this might suck, but thank you for sharing that with me. How can I help you? How can I help you get through this? I didn't ask you if I could fix anything. I acknowledge that what you're dealing with is shitty, and I've offered to partner with you without forcing anything on you.
If it's a friend, I also like the response, "Man, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm honored that you would share that with me. What would you like me to do with that information?"
I treat it like an invitation. Like, hey, I thank you for inviting me in. I know that's heavy. Thank you for inviting me in. And how can I assist you now? You know, treating it like an invitation.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
This is a big one for me. Just offering advice instead of curiosity. Like, just, and people always want to give advice. And I've often said this, we are in an advice fatigued culture because everybody wants to point a finger and say, you should go in that direction. Right. Sometimes with the best of intent. Right. I want to, I understand what you're dealing with. The solution you're looking for is that way. What we really need more of is to ask the question of, what does this look like? Be curious, and then say, hey, you know what? I can't do the work with you, for you, but I can go with you. So how can we be more of a guide instead of just a finger pointer?
I also say if it's a friend and they invite you in, "Thank you for sharing, what would you like me to do for that information?" Or "Be curious," but then I'll also say, "Hey, is it okay if I check in on you every once in a while?" Um, and obviously do it. Don't don't just do that to placate, or don't say, "Well, I'll be praying for you." No, don't do that either. Like, if you wanna pray with him in the moment, but don't do the placation.
That's the last one. Doing those things unintentionally, like the typical social response typically makes it worse. Because if you're asking someone how you can, like, if you're asking them a question, great, you ask them a question, but how can I fix that for you? They don't know how it's going to be fixed. They don't know what's going on. What the solution they're looking for is often the unknown. They have no control. And so most of those responses just make the other person's anxiety worse. And to be clear, it's not your fault because understanding it's a foreign concept for you. So you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. So let's get real practical. What actually helps?
Sitting with people and creating space of safety. It goes back to something that we can maybe make this this could be another podcast episode here in the next couple of weeks, but it engages the ability for our interpersonal neurobiology to sync up. And so if you've sitting with somebody and creating that safety in that space without pressure to respond, you're actually doing more than if you said any kind of word whatsoever. Um, Recognizing their vulnerability, saying, like we said, saying thank you for inviting me into this. Um, Checking in. Um, I think that's it. I think it's so simple. It's so simple. It's those things. It's nothing else. And then I think also, if you don't experience anxiety, or you don't have a kind of a concept of it, maybe doing your own homework later so that you have more informed conversations later with people, or that friend. And so go home and do some research. Read the Steve Cuss book. Um, Pick out my Path to Wholeness book, because I talk a lot about that in the Path to Wholeness.
The thing we talked about in the very beginning of the episode of why people want to have labels attached to them because everybody wants to feel seen, heard, and known. So what makes people feel whole and valued? Do that. And this is how I practically think you could do it is when someone acknowledges that they're in that particular space, um, like see them, say, hey, thank you for sharing that with me. And then listen, ask them a question. Can you tell me more about that? And then listen and give them a chance to speak. Let them know you hear them. And then don't fix anything. Just offer to partner with them, be a friend, show up. Hey, you know what? Anytime you need something while this is going on, just text me, do you have 8 minutes? And that'll let me know that you've got something going on. And then we can connect and I'll help you process it. You don't have to know the solutions they're looking for. You're just holding space for someone. And in that moment, you're making someone the right way feel seen, heard, and known. Also know that if you're the person dealing with anxiety, there is a level of ownership, and I learned this with myself. And if I know that I'm going to let someone know that either I'm dealing with a depressive state or I'm not in a good, like my headspace is not right, and that's usually if I let someone else know that, it means I'm dealing with a bit of stress anxiety, and for me that bleeds over into depression if it's not right. So my headspace is just off. I'm not in any of the three, but something's not right. I will always say, look, I don't need any solutions or for you to solve anything. I'm just letting you know where I'm at. Like I don't expect any of that. So I just want to invite you into where I'm at, just so that you know. And that eliminates a lot of the burden. So there is an ownership level to the person that is navigating those things. If they feel like, because I don't do it with everyone. I know that if I'm going to have conversations with like my parents and like my grandparents, they just don't understand a lot of what this is. So I would just say, hey, look, I don't expect any solutions. I don't need you to fix anything. I'm just merely telling you kind of where I'm at right now, just because I value you and I just want you to know. And that sort of that eliminates any expectation I have of getting any poor advice or poor response back that will then make me, more irritable or what have you. It also frees them from feeling like, okay, now I have to do something. Also, you have complete permission to feel without being corrected. Like if if you are in a certain headspace and you're dealing with anxiety and you tell someone and they come off and like, well, you know, yeah, what well, you should feel that way. You have people that love you, you have people that care about you. You have like a great job, you have a great career, you have like it's you have so much going on for you. You shouldn't feel that way. Um, no. Permission to tell them stop shooting on me
Mm. Yes.
because you're entirely valid in the way you're feeling.
Yeah, we're valid on how we feel. It's just we can't stay there.
So, a couple of final thoughts. How can we reframe conversations around anxiety? So, how can we mitigate the feeling of walking into a room and feeling like it's sucked out, or you're going over to watch football and Aunt Linda comes over and she just doesn't know and she's going to give the corrective response. So, um, how would Mark Mayfield reframe anxiety conversations?
I think it's more about the self-work and knowing where we're at and not taking things personally. So if we're the ones dealing with anxiety, you know, we have to have kind of think set realistic expectations of those that we're talking to. I can't just go to somebody and go, I'm going to share how I'm feeling and expect them to respond the right way. If I know that they've not responded the right way or any good way in the past, why would I, so I think
Yeah, that's just manipulation. It's deceptive behavior.
it is. And I think it's also, there's got to be a level of discernment for us on who we share it with and who we don't share it with.
Is there a component to be aware of? This is a reframe. How do you know when to talk about anxiety without oversharing?
It's got to be the right people. And I think that's sometimes trial and error, but I think that we have to make sure that we can't put the shoulds on other people either.
Right. So my go-to for that one is I try to be very others aware of where they fit in my 3 degrees of relationships.
Mm-hmm. And that's another podcast we could talk about.
And so the people that are closest to me are going to get the deepest, like most detailed level response. You move out in those 3 degrees are still people that I care about, people that are still valuable in my life, but there's different reasons why their proximity in that relationship sphere is different. It also mitigates the level of response I need to get, because if someone's in that third ring and there's someone who I know well, but for whatever reason, that's just, we can't have a close proximity relationship, I don't need to give them. It's devaluing to them. And then it's me putting pressure, so that relation sphere. And then give me one practical way to respond when someone opens up about anxiety. The first time they've heard it, it's someone who just, the person, they don't know anything about anxiety, how to respond. So what would be one proper way they can respond to someone?
I would say, hey, wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds really hard. And then I would say something around, um, tell me how you've been navigating it. How have you been, or something like that, where you're engaging in a strengths-based response. Uh, you know, tell me how you've been succeeding, or tell me how you've been, in what ways have you been, I don't know. So I'm rambling now. I think just the initial piece is probably just wow, thank you for sharing that. That had to be hard to talk about. I'm really grateful that you shared that with me, and leaving it there. I think the ongoing extra curious questions could get you in trouble the first time around.
Mine, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for inviting me in and sharing that. Um, I know that's heavy, and I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yep. And then, period. Don't feel like you have to stack a question. Don't feel like you have to add more to that. I think that's a good place to. And then as you get to know them, or as you get to know that information about them, because maybe you know them well, then you have the opportunity to, I think, next time around, ask some more curious questions after you've done your research, maybe.
So I know that was a heavily practical one. Hopefully we didn't overwhelm you, because the goal of this podcast is to simplify often overcomplicated mental health topics, and anxiety is a big one. It's in the forefront of everything, and it's something that is mislabeled, and people want to have it, and you know we don't often know how to respond, and a lot of it is the fear of responding to someone that tells me something is the mantra of the bed. How do I do this well? You don't have to solve anything. You don't have to fix anything. Just acknowledge it. Also know that you're not broken for naming something. You're not broken for, opening up and sharing that you're dealing with that. It's a tremendous sign of strength. And being aware of something and seeking to make someone aware of, or making someone aware of something, whether it's family, friends, coworkers, it's not weakness either. You're just saying, hey, I want to show up well. I want to be the best version of myself that I can be. And part of that is me letting you know that this is where I'm at right now. And also, anxiety doesn't have to be hidden to manage it. You can't just leave it tucked under the bed as the monster you don't want to deal with. Name it. Don't seek to solve it overnight. If you think you have it, go talk to someone about it. Learn about it and chip away at it one step at a time. So, guys, as always, this is not counseling. This is a clarifying tool to help you better understand this can of worms in a good way that is mental health, and to equip you to take better care of yourself so that you can show up and take care of others, and also to understand how to interact and engage and thrive in community and show up for those that are dealing with these things. So, guys, thank you as always for showing up. Do us a favor, like, subscribe on YouTube, turn on those post notifications, and wherever you listen and consume podcasts, if you haven't yet, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're over on Spotify, on iTunes, leave us a rating and review. It may sound silly, and we know you hear that on just about every podcast you listen to, but it does in fact help this get pushed into more eyes, ears, and hearts so that more people can benefit from Mental Health Made Simple, not just a podcast, the entire organization. So you guys have a great rest of your day, wherever you're watching this, and we will see you right back here next time on another episode of Mental Health Made Simple.